From Eyewitness News, this is Newsmakers.
In recent months, K-12 education has shot to the top of the agenda on Smith Hill. Top Assembly leaders recently unveiled a wide-ranging plan to change Rhode Island schools aimed at closing the gap with Massachusetts.
We have to change our governance model so that more decisions are made at the local level.
At the same time, Governor Gina Raimondo has just installed a new leader to head the Department of Education. What's her plan to improve student achievement in Rhode Island, and what does she think of the ideas put forward by lawmakers? This week on Newsmakers, new Rhode Island Education Commissioner Angelica Infante-Green. Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. Joining me on the program, Eyewitness News reporter Ted Nesi. Commissioner Angelica Infante-Green, welcome to the show and welcome to Rhode Island.
Thank you.
I have to know, what was your impression of Rhode Island before coming here, and have you ever been here before?
I've been here a couple of times before. I actually gave a speech at City Hall in Providence about a year and a half ago. So I've been here before. Lovely, lovely state. Beautiful.
Well, what else are you going to say at this moment?
Well, I'm living here, so I have to love it.
That's right. All right, let's dive right into everything that's happening up at Smith Hill right now. You're walking into the job just as the General Assembly is pushing a set of bills that would make major reforms to K-12 public education. If passed, the bills would have a major impact on your agency, in fact. How much of this did you know was coming when you took the job?
I didn't know any of it when I took the job. But I'm excited because it demonstrates that everybody's looking at education. Everybody is focusing in on it. And some of the bills my staff has worked on, so we're pretty excited about some of them. The only caution that I have is that anything new to the department should come with staff. We're very understaffed in the department.
So do you have, is it really only staffing? You all the policy ideas in there you're okay with, or are there things, because I mean these are moving fast, and
yes,
there's not going to be many months for a conversation. The legislature, once they pop this kind of thing out, they want it done in weeks. So is there anything you would have specifically as they zero in and say, well, let's look more closely at this section. I'm not sure that's going to work the way you want it to.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I think we've been having discussions talking about the nuances. Language matters because once it goes out there in a certain way, then it's expected to be enacted. So we've been talking with the different parties about the language in them. We're particularly excited about the curriculum bill because curriculum matters, and what we have found here in Rhode Island is that every district is using different curriculum. Sometimes different schools in the district are using different curriculum. So there's a different quality of education that's happening. So we're really excited about that bill.
Now, do you think, one question I got from parents when I reported on the ledge bills coming out was, they said, well, does that mean the Department of Education is going to say, like, what is taught each day, you know, if they go through curriculum? Can you just help parents understand what it would mean if there's more statewide oversight of curriculum?
Right. No, what we're hoping to do, and we're hoping to do it with teachers and administrators, is selecting the curriculum that is aligned to the standards. Because there's a lot of curriculum out there. It's a business, right? Like any other. There's a large market, and we want to make sure that our kids are getting the best instruction. So we're looking for high quality curriculum that is aligned to the standards. And the standards are what kids should know. This is what they should know in 3rd grade, 4th grade, so the curriculum should match that.
And the curriculum it's like the workbooks, right? And the textbooks and the...
All of that. It's the workbooks, textbooks, the teacher's manual that tells teachers what to teach. Doesn't necessarily tell them how to teach it. It gives flexibility, but it also gives ideas. And it also has, a good curriculum has different types of way to teach. So if you have a child that has an IEP in the classroom, or if you have a child that's learning English for the first time, what can you do with them? Or a child that's ahead or behind. So it gives you that flexibility and ability to teach all the kids.
One of the bills getting mixed reviews right now would create a Secretary of Education, another level in the state education framework. That person, as it's written now, it could change, of course, would handle RIDE's budget and answer to the governor. I guess when you read it, it could take some power away from the commissioner, but also takes some of the things off your plate, so the commissioner could focus on, you know, implementation of education policy. What are your thoughts on that? Do you support or oppose Secretary of Education?
Well, so I don't support that. I think it's another layer of bureaucracy. So what I have found is that there is a lot of bureaucracy that we as a system, and I don't just mean at RIDE, but across the board, that administrators need to navigate. So that would be another layer, and having to go to someone else to approve a budget or do the kinds of work that we need to do. And it's no secret why I came, right? We need to improve the instructional system, and I need to have the ability to be flexible to do the things that I came here to do. So
This seems to have more support on the Senate side. Have you met with the Senate president yet?
I have.
And did you tell him this?
Well, we've discussed. I think that you know, this was put in place before anyone knew me and knew the work that we were going to do. So I think that a lot of that comes also from Massachusetts. But I think that it's right now is probably not the time for that.
So you've talked a little about this, and the lawmakers have talked about it too, this sort of sense that RIDE, its current staffing and the way kind of its programs are set up are not fit for purpose. They're not driving at what both you and apparently the lawmakers want RIDE doing. What changes do you think need to be made for RIDE as a bureaucracy, as an organization, that you think would make it able to do more of what you want it to do, that you think would in the end do what everyone is wanting, which is make the schools better?
Right. So currently, our office is really compliance focused, basically accomplishing what the federal government requires of us. That is not where we have to be. We have to be a support organization where we're out in the districts supporting what instruction looks like, helping the superintendents and the principals and the teachers. We are not designed or built that way. So I actually Tuesday night asked the council for some flexibility to redesign our office, because we need instructional people. We really need to look at science, math. I'll give you this much. I don't even have someone that does social studies for the entire state of Rhode Island.
So how many more, you said, one of the first things you said on the show was you need more staff. How many more full-time employees do you need?
Well, in an ideal world, about 20, 25, that would be ideal.
At a price tag of?
We're working out those numbers. We'll have a figure hopefully by tomorrow. We're designing it, and we're trying to find alternate ways, bringing people in as consultants, or we have a fellows position. So we're trying to be creative about this, because I'm also realistic, right? The reality is that, you know, it's a tight budget season, all those things are happening. But if we're going to ask the state to do different work, we have to reorganize, and we have to put all our support behind the Department of Education.
You came from New York, from a different state, so you can do a comparison. I mean, how is what you worked in New York, the way the departments are structured there, was it more like what you're looking for? Is RIDE structured differently from what you saw in the last state?
Yes, so it is structured differently. It's really compliance heavy. It's hard for me to put it any other way. And for those of you that don't know what compliance is, it's just federal mandates, kind of checking boxes and a lot of paperwork. And my hope is that we diminish some of the paperwork that schools and districts have to do, and that it's really about what they're doing in the classroom. So that focus and shift goes from not just doing, you know, Excel spreadsheets, but really, what does the instruction look like? What does quality look like in a school? And that's different than we've had to do before. And it's a heavier lift, and it's going to require on the ground. We can't do that on a phone.
One of the criticisms you hear of the legislative package from the School Committee Association or the Superintendents Association is the reform packages don't come with more money, but others say, hey, look, when Rhode Island reformed the funding formula, it came with another $300 million to city and town schools. You know, in other words, they're saying we don't just throw more money at the problem. What do you think? Are Rhode Island schools underfunded right now, or about right?
So that's hard to say, because every district is different. I don't think it's hard to say. I think we would have to look at it district by district. I think it could be a little more funded, but we have to look at where the funding is needed, right? When we talk about equity, it's about really looking at the places that are struggling, that have a population that is that needs more resources. So I would say in those places we would have more funding, but the funding formula already does some of that. So I've heard a lot of conversations about that they're winners and losers, and we can't talk about it as winners and losers. We have to talk about it where there's more need and there's less need. So that's how I see it. Can we use more money? We could. But if we don't get the money, we'll do the work, right? That's not going to impede us from doing the work. But that money went straight to schools. I'm talking about the Department of Education, right? Because our role is going to be to support. And my vision is that we're on the ground and really doing the work. We're thought of as a bureaucracy, and we are to a certain extent, but I need to change that. We have to be more of a customer service oriented, where when we get that phone call, we respond, and we're there the next day, and we're working with schools. Very different.
One of the more interesting proposals, or one that has a lot of buzz in the legislative package, is site-based management. As I understand it, this means giving the principals more autonomy to run the schools themselves on hiring and budgets and things like that. Like I said, a lot of buzz in education circles about that. Do you think that has a lot of potential? Do you think that would make a big impact, or do you think it's oversold, the impact that would have?
It all depends, right? Because leadership matters. If you have a great principal, then that is a great place to have some of that work. If you're in a place where the administration is struggling, then you're going to have a different outcome. So I think it's a mixed bag, right? It's something that we have to look at closely. And to do that, you have to train people, right? You just don't say, here, this is how, go and do it. I think that that's part of the challenges that we have in education, is that we say, go do it. And we don't show people how to actually get it done. So it's challenging. It's challenging. It has both sides to it.
The governor signed a bill into law just this week, I believe, that allows union contracts to stay in place indefinitely if the two sides can't come to terms. It was supported strongly by the teachers' unions here in Rhode Island and opposed by municipal leaders who say it'll could increase property taxes. Do you support or oppose the continuing contract bill?
Well, I don't know enough about it to speak wisely about it, but I do know that teachers are in the front line, and teachers deserve as much support, and if that is financial or professional development, I'm all for that, because teachers are the ones that change the lives of these kids. But I don't know enough about the bill to be able to give you the the most educated answer.
Yeah, we should remind you, you've been on the job for 3 weeks, and we're throwing a lot of questions at you.
Well, let me ask you a broader question, but along the same lines. I mean, we had, as I think you'd know, Ron, big fights with the teachers and the teachers' unions about a decade ago, and that was sort of the way the education policy world was at. There was a lot of at each other's throats. Your predecessor, Commissioner Wagner, clearly tried to take the temperature down a bit on all that. Some people in the ed reform world think like you have to be fighting with the unions to get changes and to get things across, and other people say no, that's your workforce and you have to work with them and get them on board. How do you view that? How do you view your relationship as management with the teachers unions, and do you see them as an impediment or a help?
No, I don't see them as an impediment. My job is to figure out a way to work together. We have to do it, I want to be the commissioner that 3-4 years down the line you say, she actually worked with the unions and they did this together. This will be my 26th year. I have never been grieved. That has not happened. That doesn't mean that we're going to agree. I don't want anyone to think that. There will be moments that we disagree, but we can do it respectfully. And if we keep the kids at the end of every conversation, that has to be the focus. I don't like having conversations about adult issues when it has an impact on kids. If we can have that conversation, then we're great. But I've already been working with the union. They have been very supportive. And at the end of the day, we have to do what's right by kids. If there are educators that are not doing right by kids, I think the union and I have discussed that, we have to find alternate ways to work with those teachers, but those are few and far between. Right?
We're going to take a break on the program. Our guest this week is Angelica Infante-Green. She is the commissioner of the Rhode Island Department of Education. When we come back, a conversation about the beleaguered school district in Providence. Stay with us. You're watching Newsmakers. Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. To my left, Eyewitness News reporter Ted Nesi. Our guest this week is the new commissioner of the Rhode Island Department of Education, Angelica Infante-Green. Ted, question for the commissioner?
Commissioner, the governor turned a lot of heads a few weeks back when she announced what looked like the beginnings of more state involvement in Providence's long-struggling school district. The city still doesn't have a new superintendent and shows no sign so far of picking one. Are you or the governor going to choose an interim leader for Providence's schools as part of this intervention?
Well, let me tell you where we are. So Monday, today's Thursday, Monday, we have a team going in to review where Providence is. All the schools, the classrooms, the central office, from top to bottom, doing a review. And it's done by local leaders, and it's headed by Johns Hopkins. RIDE is not part of that review, and that was very intentional. We wanted to be aside so that we can look at what a neutral party has said is happening in the school system. After that happens, our goal is to go out there and make sure that everybody understands where the system is. And then there will be a convening of where we go next. You know, so we're not anywhere making a decision yet about what's going to happen, but I will tell you this, there's going to be a lot of intervention from the state moving forward.
What will that mean concretely? I mean, will you effectively be running the Providence Schools data, or your designee, rather than, you know, sort of a school board appointed superintendent like it's worth historically? That's certainly what people are saying they expect.
Well, everything's on the table now. So we don't know, right? Once we get the report, but everything, we're talking about everything and anything that we know has had proven results, because I've been walking around and we failed the kids. We failed the kids and the parents. We had my first week, this is my third week, a parent forum, and it was devastating. It was devastating to hear the parents feel like they were failed when they went to these schools, and now their kids are being failed. So I think that
that was in Providence.
In Providence, but there were parents from all over the state. But it's just not good enough, right? It's not good enough. What it's going to look like, I'm not sure. Like I said, it's my third week. I have to get to know the state as well as Providence really well, so we can make a determination on what's going to happen. But I will tell you that we will be on the ground.
A huge issue for Providence, it's tied right in there, is English language learners, which of course is your expertise, something you've worked a lot on in your career. You know, that's such a big issue that it's hard to come up with a single question on it. But is there a sort of top of your list from you knowing about that you're going to be looking at on how to make English language learners more successful in the schools that you want to see if they're doing, both in Providence and in other districts where that's an issue?
Absolutely. It's an area of expertise of mine. So one of the things that I find is that students have to get grade level instruction. There's this idea that if you give them a little less, they'll learn English faster. That's just not true. Also, using their home language, you don't have to speak that language, but use it as an asset. Figure out what you can translate from that language that you can bring in. The kids don't come in as empty vessels. They actually bring a language and knowledge. And language means that you have conceptual thinking. If we start from ground zero, then it's the assumption that they don't have anything to contribute. And I think that's a lot of what I've seen so far. And
does that mean a teacher has to be more multilingual, or are you going to bring in additional teachers into the classroom to?
Well, so all of the above. So
Okay.
teachers have to be knowledgeable about the language. They don't have to know the language. I don't have to know Portuguese to know that it's a Romance language, that some words the kids will know and we can give them the English word or the concepts, right? And I think what we have to move away from, there is this idea of teaching English where this is a table, this is a cup. Not good enough, right? Our kids are not being tested on what a cup is or a table, but really on, this is a newsroom, and in the newsroom you find this and you find that, but you're talking about the concept of what happens here. So it's very different. And the other piece is, I'm a big proponent of dual language programs and bilingual education. We see that the kids in those programs outperform everyone. And I don't mean just the multilingual learners, but the kids that only speak English. That is a program that benefits everyone, and I see very few of those programs here in Rhode Island. And the ones that I have seen are doing better. Even if there's just a strand in the school, that strand is outperforming everyone else.
You know, I took a look at the data in New York, though, before walking into the studio, and there's still quite a gap between English language learners and non-English language learners. Is it working there?
It is, it is. So what we see there that we don't see here, which is interesting, once the kids test out, they outperform everyone. Outperform everyone. And they're probably English language learner or multilingual learner 3 years. But after that, they outperform everyone. And that's what you want to look at. What happens when they're no longer, because they should not stay for more than 5-6 years. The average is 3 to 4 years. So once they exit that program, how are they performing? And I think that's what we need to look at, because obviously if they're an English language learner, they've been here a year or two, that's an unfair comparison. But once they've been here, then that's what we need to look at. What happens? And when I ran the numbers here, we don't see that same trend.
Back to Providence briefly, the parents that you met with the other day, I'm guessing there was a good percentage of those parents that are on the waiting list, or their kids are on the waiting list to get into Achievement First, which is a charter school in Providence, and to serve students there and surrounding communities. Providence Mayor Jorge Elorza has been slow to allow Achievement First to expand. Would you like to see an expansion of Achievement First, or do you want to pump the brakes on that?
Well, I don't know, because I haven't done an assessment of what that looks like in Providence. All this is going to come out.
But you do know Achievement First.
I
were
do
in New
know
York.
Achievement First. I do know Achievement First. So I believe in choice for families, right? You have children, you know what that means for you to go to a school system. But you know, the charter school conversation is always a toxic conversation. And it shouldn't be, because we're really talking about 8% of the population goes to charter schools. I don't like to pit traditional schools with charter schools, because they're all public schools, right? And my job is to work with all of them. But if some are achieving better, we look at why. Are there things that we can partner and we can do together? That's more the conversation that I want to have than should they go there? Is this better? Is it not? How does it work? I don't think that that's a productive conversation. But do I believe in choice for parents? Absolutely. If the school that my child is going to is not producing the results, then I should have choice. Right? I don't know what that would look like in Providence, but my job is to make sure that all the schools are high quality, so parents don't have to make difficult choices.
That could take a long time, though, and there are a lot of parents looking to get into Achievement First now because they get one shot with their kids now. Would that maybe even be a temporary solution?
It might. Like I said, everything is on the table right now. I don't believe in limiting opportunities for children. I started this by saying that this is about children, and it might take a long time, but I'm hoping, and I know that we're going to start seeing those changes pretty rapidly. It does take a long time to change the system, but we're going to start seeing markers of what we've put in place in 1 year, 2 years. We'll see that. We'll see those footprints, and they'll be much better than they are right now. That I can guarantee.
How do you balance, as commissioner, we're talking here a lot about Providence, and there are a ton of students in Providence, and Providence has specific needs. The urban core has specific needs. Then you have a district like Barrington, which often performs at the top of the list. Very different situation they're in, more local funding available. Do you, in the end, think RIDE needs to be more focused on the districts that are struggling more and sort of let the Barringtons of the world take care of themselves? Or do you think it's possible for your office to, I don't know, have strategies that are good for, or that work for every district, all different types?
Well, I'm the commissioner of Rhode Island, not Providence, right? Providence is an area of focus, but it's not the only job that I have. I am committed to working for all children in Providence, and even the Barringtons can be even better. Right? So my job is to bring instructional practice that can translate. Good teaching is good teaching. Right? That goes across the board. And what I've seen is that we can do better in all our school districts. Barrington was wonderful, but we can push it. We can push it even further. I think that's important. And we've been talking about the scores, and one of the things that's important to remember, that all of Rhode Island, if we were a district in Massachusetts, we'd be the lowest 10%. Okay, so that to me means that I have to work with the entire state. So that when we look at curriculum, we're looking at curriculum in every district. We're looking at instructional practice in every district. So that's why I keep emphasizing the need for more staff, more support, the business community. No one's off the hook here. No one, including the media. I need this to be front and center all the time. It just needs to be on everybody's radar. We can't let the momentum stop. We're all galvanized to do this work right now. And everybody's been very welcoming and very exciting. 6 months down the line, it's not going to be that, right? I'm going to have make some tough choices that not everybody's going to like. But I'm okay with that, because at the end of the day, if it improves what we have for all our kids, then that's what we need to do.
Well, Channel 12's off to a good start. We have you on the show 3 weeks in. All right, real quick, we have a minute and a half left in the program. Should high-stakes testing be part of the requirement for students to obtain a high school diploma?
That's an interesting question. Well, I think that we have tests. We have the SAT, which is obviously the test that everybody goes to. What we need to look at is proficiency. right? Is there a benchmark that kids need to meet? And we need to be working towards proficiency. I think right now what we have is that the kids take the tests, whatever they get, they get. I think as we improve the system, we should be looking at high school as where do we expect the kids to be? I think that's work that we're going to be doing a few years out. But I do believe that there should be some sort of threshold. I mean, there is to get into college, but we're not tackling that right now. We're not having that conversation right now.
So you can see it down the line, but
I can see some
you think work needs to
conversations.
happen before to get there.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's not fair to expect kids to perform at a certain level if they haven't gotten the instruction that's going to get them there.
All right, we talked a lot about the package of bills that the General Assembly put forth. If you need a primer on that, Ted did a great summary of that. You can read it on WPRI.com. We will put a link to it on the Newsmakers page. And Angelica Infante-Green, Commissioner of the Rhode Island Department of Education, thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you in 6 months, right?
6 months.
For Ted Nesi, I'm Tim White. We'll see you next